What if there were parallel worlds that we could travel into going east or west? And what if those parallel worlds were infinite? What would happen to humanity under those circumstances? I'm talking about the Long Earth series by Stephen Baxter and Terry Pratchett. Cue in killer intro track. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to another episode of Amazing Worlds, where I'll be covering, like I said earlier, the Long Earth series by Terry Pratchett and Stephen Baxter. I got this nice slipcase edition as a birthday present from my wife last year. Really knockabout price, brand new. She knows how much I love the Discworld series and how much I miss Sir Terry Pratchett, and this series has got his name attached to her, so she thought it would be a great present. Now, I am not a big fan of sci-fi, and I was very aware that the Long Earth series was very much sci-fi based. I was a bit reluctant, a bit hesitant, but I gave it a go and I read all of them. Now, the series is comprised of 5 books titled, what have we got here? Yes, so The Long Earth, The Long War, The Long Mars, The Long Utopia and The Long Cosmos. And I've got my notes here as usual because I want to give you my opinion and really say what I honestly feel. So the basic premise of the books is exactly that. There are infinite parallel Earths where they all differ a little bit from each other in the sense that they have naturally developed over the millions of years in subtle different ways, and the further away you step away from Earth, the more those worlds are different from Earth, which is called the datum Earth. It's the planet where we live. The only thing that all those planets have in common is that humanity hasn't developed. There are life forms. In some cases there are very different life forms to the ones we know, but there has been no human evolution. Now, book 1, and all books, our main character is, in book 1 is a kid, and we see him grow up during the series, Joshua Valiente. And the premise starts by one day this mad science professor releases on the internet what he calls as a stepping machine, which is some sort of device, and actually it's quite funny because in one of the books, in the first book, you get a diagram on how to build that stepping machine, which is potato powered. I didn't know potatoes actually could generate electricity, but apparently you can, and they do. And by flicking a switch you can step east or west into a different parallel Earth. So one day all these kids build their own stepping box, and they all step away from Earth, and this kid, Joshua Valiente, an orphan, rescues them all, and that becomes known as Step Day, and then humanity ventures and explores these parallel planets, these parallel worlds. Now, in general, a theme that I found with the books is that they are a bit rambling. There's not really a plot overall. You could pick book 1 and be done with it. You could actually start in book 3 and not need book 1 or 2. There is no overall theme, overall story that takes you from A to B, and the books feel a little bit more like idea exploration themes. In a lot of them, actually, they're about 450 pages long. I got the feeling that I didn't actually know what was happening, what the point of each book was, until the last 100 or maybe 70 pages in which at which point there's a big reveal. Oh my god, this is going to happen. Bam, 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 bam. It all gets sorted, and that's it, and we move on to the next one. Having said that, they are very easily read. You can definitely, if you're familiar with Terry Pratchett's Discworld work, you can hear the echoes there. And for me, I loved Discworld so much that it gave me a little bit of a pang. Every so often you will read a paragraph and you will go, that's classic Pratchett there. Book 2 has got a bit more of a connected story. It takes on from 10 years after the events of Book 1. There is this animal species they call trolls, but they are not trolls in the high fantasy sense that we may know them. They are more like sort of maybe more evolved orangutan type thing, and there's also talk of elves and kobolds, but they're not really, as I said, fantastical creatures in the sense that we are familiar with, just kind of different evolutions of life, say. And again, nothing really happens in the long war. Book 3, again, sort of takes on a few years after the events of Book 2, is The Long March, and again, it felt like three really different, disconnected ideas. On the one hand, we've got one set of characters that go to explore Mars, and they discover that Mars is also long, as in you can step east or west from Mars as well. And then you've got another part of the story where there's a kind of arms nuclear space race, so to speak, with different countries are trying to see how far away from datum Earth they can travel, how many million Earths away they can go. But again, that's it. They go to Mars, they come back from Mars, and there's no sense of adventure. There's no sense of purpose. There is next to no character development whatsoever. We follow Joshua over the 5 books, and to be honest, you don't really care that he's got kids, that he gets divorced, that his wife dies or doesn't die. That we get to learn a little bit about his back history, because he's what they call a natural stepper. So he doesn't need that machine, that stepping box, to shift east or west from Earth. He can do it naturally, and we get to learn a little bit about how that happens. But you know, no big deal. Book 4, again, we don't know what's going on. People are going on trips, people are doing things. Why are they doing them? Don't know, don't care, doesn't matter. And then in the last 50 pages, we actually find that there's a huge risk and danger to the long Earth, not just Earth, but the long Earths, and it'll get solved and sorted in 50 pages. So that's okay. Move on. And book 5, the last book in the series, we finally get to see a very old Joshua, where he wants to go on a last haunt through the long Earth on his own, and that's it. And that's it. Which is weird, because actually the beginning of book 5 starts with an exciting premise where a message is heard across all the different Earths, some sort of extraterrestrial intelligence, a message saying join us, and what are we going to do about it, and who's asking us, and for what purpose, and with what intent. And again, it doesn't matter. It doesn't get explored. It doesn't get resolved. We don't know who we're joining, why, and should we or should we not. And the books, they're easy reads. I feel they are more a sort of communication of deep science ideas, with a coating of Terry Pratchett, with the hope to attract a bigger market, increase sales, because particularly, I mean, they were written very much in the last years of Sir Terry Pratchett's life. I mean, they were being published one book a year. It's been a long time since Sir Terry Pratchett, prolific as he was writing at that rate. I mean, at the peak of Discworld, he was doing one a year. The last book in this series was actually published posthumously, so he was already dead by the time it came out, and I'm not entirely sure how much of an input he had in the books. As I said, they're merely explorations, exhibitions of scientific ideas, maybe perhaps introducing notions of higher dimensions that us lay people cannot comprehend. The idea of having infinite realities and what may that entail. Would the existence of, if we could travel to infinite space or other planets, would that end war? Would that end famine? How would people react and behave? But I felt it's all done very, very superficially. Across the series, nothing is risked, nothing is lost, and nothing is gained. There's no sense of investment into the characters of the story. You're not going on a long epic trip, and to say that, I mean, look at the size of it. We're talking about 400 times 5. We're talking about 2,000 plus pages of actually nothing. I'm not a big sci-fi fan, so I'm not entirely sure I would be recommending this to anyone. However, I did find, as I mentioned earlier, as a big Terry Pratchett fan, there were echoes there, and there was enjoyment in that, and there are certain kind of Easter eggs there, if you're familiar with Discworld, that you'll pick up from it. But yeah, not one for the all-time top 10 for sure. But not my genre, so maybe I've missed a big idea. So as usual, please like, subscribe, comment, let me know what you think. And even if you pressed the thumbs down button, let me know why. I would like to hear and know from you, and have a conversation there. I'm still trying to stick to one video per week, because that's as much as I can manage at the moment. It's been a bit difficult recently. I am quite busy, and I'm quite looking forward to February. February is going to be a busy month for me. I've got a running event in the next couple of weeks. I'm taking my son to our first Comic-Con, so that's going to be quite exciting. Hoping to meet a few authors and buy a few comics and enjoy that experience with him. But until then, please have fun, enjoy, take care, and see you next time. Bye.